Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video and a Silicon Curtain co-stream with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce, and the esteemed Jonathan Fink, although he's had some technical issues, which is why we are 15 minutes late. But we are here, and that is the main thing. Today I am sporting a pro-Canadian top because let's fight back in the economic spheres as well as the military spheres in Ukraine. There appears to be a new bully in town, and news coming out at the moment is very bad. There is some very bad news in terms of, and we'll talk about this before Arena from Jigger's Paw comes on, in terms of intelligence sharing. Jonathan, have you been hearing about this as well?
Yes, well, I was actually writing an episode this morning where I'm trying to identify 10 key areas which indicate that Trump is working to the benefit of Russia. And I was just writing the section on the withdrawal of military support when this news on intelligence came through. And of course, one could say that defense and intelligence, well, actually, it was a lack of clarification in their announcement on withdrawal of military support. And it may well be they intended for them to be, one and the same, but it wasn't clarified in yesterday's announcement. That's been clarified today. But of course, without revealing, well, I'm not party to secrets and stuff, but we have to understand that actually there is a substantial amount of intelligence data. The US doesn't just source it from its satellites and whatever. A lot of it is processed and analyzed, and some of it is sourced via GCHQ in Cheltenham. So this isn't just, the headline withdrawal of intelligence, because this is a complex arrangement and network between US and its allies. So this is not just extremely dangerous. This is unbelievably destructive and damaging to alliances as well as Ukraine.
Well, yeah, so if we go and look to see what has taken place, I am going to share this. So what do we have? Well, Shashank Joshi from The Economist says, bad news, unnecessary, punitive, vindictive. Quote, the US has cut off intelligence sharing with Kyiv in a move that could seriously hamper the Ukraine military's ability to target Russian forces, according to officials familiar with the matter. That's the Financial Times. He then goes on to say the US appears set on crushing Ukraine's capacity to force Zelenskyy to submit. And never mind that this is a bonfire of leverage versus Russia, which has every reason to believe it can dictate terms to reject a ceasefire in the knowledge that Trump is likely to blame Ukraine. Inept negotiating. I'm now beyond the point where do you know what? Trump has changed sides. And like you say, everything, you can phrase it how you like, whether agent, asset, aligning, whatever. But everything he does, as you say, Jonathan, is to the benefit of Russia.
It is. And I think what's missing from a lot of the commentary, and I've also, looked through a lot of stuff on X and Blue Sky, what's being missed here is that one of Russia's key demands. So we have to go back and we have to look at Russia's key demands and as they've accrued since Istanbul. And you might think, okay, intelligence, it's just vindictive. It's something Trump did. There is a key demand in Russia's so-called demands for peace that says that Western weaponry, and one would say by extension, the intelligence and data that powers that weaponry, that Ukraine should be deprived of all capability of firing Western munitions into Russia. So Trump is not just doing something vindictive here, he is fulfilling a key criteria of Russia's peace demands. And as I say, I'm doing an analysis of this. If we just look, if we get distracted by the smoke and mirrors, the sound and fury of what happened in the Oval Office, we miss the big picture. The big picture here is that Trump is working to benefit Russia, and he's systematically going through and looking at what Russia's demands for capitulation are, and he's trying to make them happen. So denial of intelligence isn't just a vindictive thing, it's a key alignment with Russia's demands for so-called peace. But it's not peace, it is the capitulation of Ukraine and, by extension, capitulation of its allies in Europe.
Yeah, I think I said this the other day, and I absolutely think this is the maxim that we need to remember, which is the White House has made a calculation that they would prefer that Ukrainian civilians die than Russian soldiers die in order to force peace. That's a calculation they made. Literally, we could give weapons to Ukraine to force Russian soldiers to die and their economy to be in trouble, and that will bring about peace. Or we can starve Ukraine of weapons and intelligence, and that will lead to the death of Ukrainians to get Zelenskyy to fold and capitulate to the demands of peace. That's a calculation they have made. They've clearly made the calculation that they would prefer Ukrainians to die than Russians to die to bring about their peace. And I think it's disgusting.
It is disgusting, and I feel a little remiss because my instinct has always been to think that Trump would align with authoritarians because that is the evidence of his first term and the evidence of a lot of his rhetoric. And of course, the appointees that he made, some fulfill that in spades. Some suggested that perhaps his policy was going to be a little more nuanced. And many people who are in Republican fringes and party to the debates that were happening, not just in Republican sort of traditional circles, but even in Mar-a-Lago, suggest there has been a lot of debate trying to persuade Trump to go down the Kellogg route, which is that, okay, you might push both parties to not capitulate, but push both parties into peace. What is clearly emerging now is that Trump is only pushing one way, and that is for Ukraine to capitulate, and he is leaning on the scales the other way to give Russia an advantage, when it's quite clear that Russia is extremely brittle, extremely fragile at this point. Their ability to project violence is reducing in Ukraine, not increasing. If we look at the battlefield situation, the number of incursions, the number of, the ability of them to sort of project into the battlesphere has been going down over the last 3 months significantly, trackably, and it's demonstrably true. So Trump's coming in, and he's not just weakening Ukraine. He is acting, and he will act even further, I believe, to strengthen Russia's position, not prevent them to collapse. And let's face it, Biden's policy tried to prevent Russia's collapse by not overarming Ukraine. Let's be honest about that. There's a certain consistency there. But what he's now trying to do, which is utterly different, something Biden would never have considered, and that he is trying to help Russia actually win. Why are they doing this? It's because they think they can peel Russia away from China. And here's a piece of news you may or may not have seen. I'm going to do an episode on it. There have been discussions apparently between China and Russia. China has numerous, is reported, military monitors who've been trying to look and learn at what's going on and how warfare is changing. We know that North Korean troops have been there. We suspect that those North Korean troops may have shared certain intelligence with their, with their superiors and learnings from the battlefield. They may well have shared those with the Chinese as well. Now it is being said that China is potentially negotiating with Russia for its troops to gain battlefield experience.
I didn't report that because I didn't know how reliable the sourcing was on that. It was like something like TNS.
It's a little sketchy, but it underscores this idea that if the US is making a strategic pivot to try to align with white Christian Russia and its imperial ambition to try and diminish China's power, non-white, atheist, communist, this is doomed to fail because essentially they're united by something far stronger than the, I'd say, incipient racism behind the US policy. And that is they understand that they represent the authoritarian world in different ways, but their view is the authoritarian world is an implacable foe of the democratic world. And at the moment, the US is certainly not seen as a full authoritarian. So the US strategy is, in my mind, utterly delusional, doomed to fail. But how much damage it's going to cause before they learn that lesson is extraordinary.
Well, let's just look at a bit more of that damage. So Jim Sciutto from CNN says, a new senior US military official tells CNN that the US has curtailed some intelligence sharing with Ukraine, which could affect both offensive and defensive operations, which means air defense, since Ukraine also depends on US intel for Overwatch. Among the changes is a reduction of intelligence surveillance reconnaissance flights. One senior military official says the US has, quote, lost Ukraine's trust. Yaroslav Trofimov says, in plain language, the Trump administration worries about unnecessary deaths in Ukraine so much that it has stopped sharing information about Russian missiles heading toward Ukrainian cities. And again, I go back to my maxim. Quote, British intelligence agencies report that along with the suspension of military aid to Ukraine, the US has banned Britain from sharing intelligence from Washington with Kyiv until further notice. The ban has been received by GCHQ and other intelligence services. There have been no reports in other media about this, but the Daily Mail can be trusted when it comes to inside information from Britain. And we have the US has selectively stopped sharing intel with Ukraine that could aid Russian strikes, but continues providing intelligence for operations on occupied territory, a source has told Sky News. And then just finally here, Michael Weiss says cutting off military aid and vital intelligence to Zelenskyy to bend the knee, but even that is not sufficient. Now it's getting more out of a minerals deal that was done and dusted as of a week ago. Punishment and abasement for Ukraine is complemented by unearned gifts for Russia. So this is the idea that they are now going back to the drawing board with the minerals deal because it's not good enough for the US. It wasn't punitive enough for Ukraine. So Ukraine had done a really good job of rejigging that deal. Now I said finally, but actually then there's this is like, so there's now a trade war with Canada, and that is just further insanity. But Melanie Joly, the foreign minister for Canada, was interviewed by Newsnight last night. And Shashank Joshi says of that interview, which is fascinating, I watched most of it, says this is really serious. America threatening Canada. So she said, basically, Canadian Foreign Minister Joly tells Victoria Derbyshire on BBC Newsnight that there have been threats to Canadian independence, and they're not a joke. When Trump officials talk to them, they say military cooperation and water have been put on the table. They've been threatening, quote, they've been threatening us of different things. Shashank Joshi says this is really serious. America threatening Canada not only with Five Eyes expulsion and border changes, but also military cooperation, continental air defense is joined at the hip, and water. The US is currently a major national security threat to Canada. Like, this is just absolute insanity going on at the moment, and I don't think people realize quite how serious this is. And also I'm somewhat fed up of people that are still trying to bend the knee to Trump and defend him as some kind of 5D chess player. He is a dangerous man that does not have any of his allies' best interests at heart at all, one iota.
Not at all. No, he has in effect declared war on the Western world, on those which that very Western world, that very system that the US built over 80 years, and for all its failings and faults, I think history will come to judge that actually it was one of the most benign periods of world history, the one in which the most wealth generation and distribution of wealth took place, and the one where poverty declined at its fastest rate in human history. Well, Trump is dismantling that period. He's going back to an extremely dark age, which could be compared to sort of 18th, 19th century age of imperialisms. But let's face it, many of the empires of the 19th century, or the British Empire, for all of its extraordinary crimes and failings, was also driven by certain values. Trump's imperialism has no values beyond extortion and extraction and pure power. In that sense, it's comparable to the Russian empire, entirely comparable. Russia has not just exported misinformation, it has exported its entire toxic worldview. And they found in Trump someone who is a natural proponent of that. There's an ever so slight difference in that the Russian power vertical, it purely resolves on power. So if you want prestige and wealth, that almost accrues to you by virtue of the power you've gained within that system. Within the US, you can still, through, let's say, inherited or earned wealth and the prestige that comes with that, you can gain power and rise up in that vertical. So there's a slight little nuance difference there. But ultimately, he's bought into this idea that you've got an extreme hierarchy of power, an extreme hierarchy of status. And unfortunately, he sees Zelenskyy and he sees Ukraine as just another shithole country that is beneath both the US and himself in that vertical. Unfortunately, here's a message for Europeans. You're all in that category. of shithole rulers and shithole countries as well.
And it gets worse, just in case you were wondering whether it could get worse. So Axios is reporting that the US will continue to suspend weapons supplies and intelligence sharing with Ukraine until a date for peace talks with Russia is set, the White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said. So this is now strong-arming Ukraine fully into submission in order to get a peace deal done. But the peace deal, it will not be to the benefit of Ukraine. There's nothing to do with a just peace, nothing to do with security guarantees. That will be, you need to sign a ceasefire, and then we'll do a nice little deal on the side with Russia. Thank you very much. And I think so. And sorry, just to say, Europe is meeting very importantly today in Brussels in the 6th of March meeting that's been kind of preceded by this meeting on the 2nd of March in London. That meeting was about how do we deal with the US. Nothing came out from that meeting in public, particularly, other than some generic statements. And I've said that's because they couldn't release any statements about that, because that whole conversation would have been about the threat that Trump is. So they can't then come out and say Trump is a threat. So they came out with like, oh, Europe needs to rearm, blah, blah, blah. But there would have been some of the most important conversations, I think, in recent time on the 2nd of March. We just won't know about them. Now we've got, what is this going to look like for Europe? And I'm hoping today there's going to be there's talk about Hungary getting kicked out of the EU, as there's a move for that. But if we don't see Europe picking up the baton that the US hasn't just dropped, they've thrown in the face of the Ukrainians. If we don't see the Europeans pick that baton up and go strongly with it today, then the future of Ukraine is massively in doubt. And you're muted, which is,
of course I'm muted. What should we see? What should we see happen now? We cannot now wait for a consensus with the US, because the US is a direct threat to our security, our independence, and our sovereignty. There is no question now. So there can be no consensus. There can be no waiting for some realignment with the US. The US is implacably aligned with Ukraine, unless there's some internal coup to overturn that, which is vanishingly unlikely at this point. Then that is what we're facing. So we have to do something else. If Britain, and possibly France as well, don't step in and immediately work to close the skies over Ukraine, then it means we're not serious. I'm not saying boots on the ground immediately, because logistically that's very, very complex. But unless we can work to close the skies, then we're not serious about this. And if we hear any more statements coming out about further consultation with the US, then that's a form of capitulation to US terror. And Irina, we'll finish off this thought, and then we'll get on to Ukrainian resilience and what needs to happen. But the UK, I'm sure, will find a way to get the intelligence that it can through to Ukraine. Other allies need to step up on that. But there's going to be some real problems here in terms of air defense coverage, in terms of the sort of kinetic capability of Ukraine to strike. Russia, fortunately, have long-range drones, but the stuff we've seen against ammo dumps is going to be difficult. But at this point, it's an inflection point with Europe. We are on our own, and we're not just on our own. We're facing an alliance of authoritarians, which now includes the US.
Yeah, and I said this. I said on the 6th of March, and then said today. Today is obviously the 5th of March. So correction, the big meeting in Brussels is tomorrow. But they're all sort of gearing up for that. And just to give you another sense of this, of the decision about intelligence sharing. So George Barros, who is from the Institute for the Study of War. So you've got a lot of American military think tank people and experts and analysts, like absolutely sort of jaw drop reaction here. Terrible decision. Cutting intel sharing will grant Russian forces enhanced protection at the operational level. Russian battlefield gains have been dropping since late 2024, but this stands to help Russia rebuild lost momentum. It is just a shocker, and it's especially galling since, we're hearing from people like the former head of MI6 saying, what's his name? Is he Younger? He's saying that Putin's bet the farm on Trump's deal. So without Trump's deal saving him, he says, Russia will collapse. And I don't disagree. I think this has been what's frustrating about this is Russia are economically and militarily on a precipice.
Yes.
And this is the opportunity to go all in with helping Ukraine, and the US has just turned around and joined the other side, and I think it's absolutely unconscionable. I am beyond, I almost don't know what to say. I'm beyond anger now. Just, it gets me. Now, we do know that like Eutelsat and other like satellite non-American, Starlink satellite providers are stepping up. They're saying they're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. I don't know if Irina has any thoughts on the ability to communicate in ways. I know last time I spoke with Irina, she was saying that there are other options for communications, at least, but those are more on the tactical level rather than the kind of operational level. So Irina, what are your thoughts on all the news that's happened over the last week since we spoke?
Too many thoughts to share in the time frame I have. Hi everyone.
Hi Irina.
Be here with you. Hope you have a nice day. First we were desperate about all of that. We were like just waiting. We were watching the meeting of Trump and Zelenskyy, the late night here in Ukraine. I posted it on my social media somewhere, and my friends were like, could I come? Because I'm watching it alone on my own. Could we make a party, watching it? So we just did it together, had some chips and stuff. After a while, we just started making fun of it. But now it seems they had their fun part done. And based on what Trump just said yesterday, he mentioned like they were about returning back to talks, and he received some letter from Zelenskyy and some stuff like that. So maybe they'll get back to signing that minerals deal. Maybe people explain that it is actually useful. We will see. But I'm very happy to see the statements from European leaders, especially for the rockets to cover our air. I guess from Great Britain we get like 5,000 rockets announcements, if I'm not mistaken, because that was my main question. Basically, when the US announced they are stopping military aid, basically the first thing would be what are we using for Patriots now, and what are we using for other air defense systems? Because
those ones from the UK, sorry to interrupt, but those ones from the UK, it's great, 5,000, probably martlets. They will be short range, best at taking out things like drones or aircraft if they're close, but not really for ballistic missiles, certainly. And that's a problem, is you've got the Patriot systems where you need PAC-3 interceptors, and then you've got SAMP-T, there's a couple of those from France, Italy, but they need to basically replace all their Patriots with SAMP-Ts and get everything from Europe at the moment. But that's like a long-term thing, and right now running out of Patriot interceptors is a massive challenge.
Exactly, and it means we will have to choose what to shoot down, basically, like to choose between electrical infrastructure, to choose between factories, hospitals, whatever, like choose what we have to defend, because we will be very limited in munitions we have.
Here's a terrible suggestion. A suggestion about something horrific. I remember speaking to Pierre ages ago about this, about like and this is like a year and a half ago, when you felt that there was a war fatigue, and you say, do you know what would help? But excuse the fact that this is horrific, is if something terrible happened in Ukraine where lots of civilians died, or some kind of horror like that, and then the world goes, oh yeah, I remember how terrible this is, we need to really help Ukraine. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like, I wouldn't want to wish that, but my thought here is but hear me out. Like, if Russia, if we knew that they'd run out, say, Patriot interceptors, and Russia sends all these Kinjal missiles into somewhere, right, and causes mass destruction, and the world goes, do you know what? That was your fault, the US. And you say, literally, the United States has killed X many people, X many civilians, right? That's your fault. Then there might be enough like feeling of, well, I don't know that Trump would have the feeling of embarrassment or shock or whatever, but there might be enough popular uprising to go, you need to change that. Well, I don't know. That's just a thought.
That's very dangerous. And I can give you a categorical answer on that. And the answer is no. Trump, through poor decision-making, led to potentially tens, if not hundreds of thousands of excess deaths during COVID. No one recalls that. No one recalls any
Yeah.
of those decisions
Great
he
point.
made. He's cancelled US aid, which will directly cause the deaths, preventable deaths of tens of thousands in the third world and other places. He does not care. The people around him don't care. And we cannot sit back and wait. I mean, this is something we were talking about earlier, which is the Democrat strategy, apparently. Although I'd love for Democrats to come forward and say that it isn't. Just stand back and wait while Trump burns the house down. The trouble is that's your house that he's burning down. Unless you run in and try to save it, you've let him get away with it, and then he'll turn around and blame it on you. And a lot of his acolytes will do the same. They won't go around, oh, hang on a second, we made a bad decision and it caused a terrible result. They'll turn around and say, but this was Biden's war. Biden caused this, even though he's been nowhere near it. So no, we cannot wait for that. We cannot live in delusion anymore that the US is ruled by humanity or values. It's an adversary, and we have to start treating it as such, not with open conflict, but we have to start making decisions without it and without a consensus from the US. Sitting back and waiting for anything is the worst idea at this point.
Yeah, and just on that note about USAID, before we get onto the more upbeat conversation about Jigar's Paul, the Supreme Court has just ruled 5-4 in favour of goodness, so allowing USAID funding to be unfrozen. So the Supreme Court has ruled against Trump. That's really interesting. However, 4 Supreme Court justices still voted in favour of illegally stopping funding. So there are many more fights, I'm sure, going to take place. And interesting, on a Supreme Court discussion front, Justice Roberts, who's the most senior of the Supreme Court judges, when after his State of the Union speech last night, Trump was going past all the judges shaking their hands, and he said, you could lip read him, something like, "Thanks, I won't forget," or something, to Justice Roberts. In other words, there's been some favour that that Supreme Court Justice Roberts has done for Trump, that Trump is caught on camera thanking him for. So the Supreme Court is not going to be the best of friends of the American public, I don't think, and they're somewhat in the pocket of Trump. But however, a 5-4 ruling in favour of USAID funding is interesting. Okay, so moving on to Jigar's Paul, and I don't know if Irina wants to just reintroduce herself to the audience to make sure that they know who she is.
Definitely. Let's get the link up as well. Let's get the fundraising link.
Okay,
there we go. Let's going to go for that. Irina, great to see you.
Yes, so hello again. I'm Irina. I'm currently leading this organization, the website of which you see in front of you. Jigar's Paul. Jigar is my dog, and we are here in Lviv. And this month, and since mid-February until the end of March, we are raising funds for 90 night vision drones for 7 different units of our armed forces. And the 2 Jonathans joined this fundraiser, and they are raising their parts. And I'm here today to thank you all for your generous donations, because I think we raised altogether like more than 25,000 now, I believe, because the goal was like 1, then we increased it because you were donating, and we increased it from 5 drones to more drones. So as of now,
we on my side, like, it says 21,000 there, but actually it's 23,500. No, 24,500, which we have indeed reached minus $7, right? Yeah. So almost there, which is absolutely brilliant, because we had only had 17,500 as the initial target, and then just smashed through it. It's just so amazing. And once we'd sort of almost finished it and moved on to the NATO campaign, people were still donating. There's some incredibly generous donations on this list. I mean, literally some people putting thousands of dollars in, which is just it blows my mind. But even all the small contributions, it all helps. It's all amazing. So I'm just absolutely bowled over by how incredible my audience has been.
And we are too. We were like, what's going on? Why do we get all these donations? And then we recognized it was from your audience, because people left ATP comments, and this is just wonderful. We have our Slack channel with all the like incoming donations notifications. So whenever somebody donates, it will appear as a message, and people, put reactions. So people are just blown. They're like putting, hearts, likes, celebrations, and stuff every time they get this. This is really you cheered up our team too.
Oh, that's amazing. What a cool bunch of people the ATP team is. And we're going to be doing a raffle for some goodies. Is that correct? Is that what you've got ready today before we took just as confirmation? Is that
absolutely. So we have this. Yeah, thanks for putting up that picture. So we have agreed to raffle some items from first one of the units we support. So first is items from them. There will be 2 items. One patch. I actually have it. I can bring it. Chervona Kalina Brigade patch. This is like their combat patch. So they don't have much of them because we asked them to send a couple, and they're like, no, we will just send you one. I'm like, okay, fine, just send us one. And the other thing is a flag, and they will sign it. It's not signed yet because they would like to sign it customly for a person who will win. So basically, once they know the name of the winner, they will sign it. And yeah, and if the winner wants something special to be signed, they will do it. If not, we will just let them know who are you and who is the winner, and they will just put the name of the winner. That's fine. And then we have a set from Ziggy's Paw, our merch set, basically, stickers, our nice pin with the paw, and our custom badge, supporter. This is actually a badge we are not putting on sale because we have our like merch store, but this badge goes specifically for people who are raising funds for us, basically. So it's a chance to earn it and pretend you were raising funds for us, but actually Jonathan's are raising funds. But we will give this custom badge for a person who wins this. And the third item was added exclusively by me. I'll be handmade chocolate because that's my favorite. We have a chocolate factory here in Lviv, and I love it. And the best thing they have is melted chocolate, but you're not going to get it somewhere abroad. You have to be here in Lviv to try it. Have you tried it?
No,
we didn't when we were out there.
No,
but
we didn't,
it just means we're going to have to come out again, Irina.
Again, yeah. Next time it's on me. I'm bringing you for the chocolates.
I think we tried beer. I had 3 or 4 types of sala, but no, we missed out on the chocolate.
I just tried the beer and just different types of beer, and then also I had some beer, and one night I had some more beer. But anyway, that's something else. And Jonathan has his own raffle as well with obviously similar things too.
That's it. Do you want to explain how people actually contribute, and we can get the fundraiser link up? I'm just trying to put the same thing into the description of the video.
So although it says $10 there, mine was $20 actually for qualification. So sorry if there's any confusion there. So if you go to the link under the description or in the live chat, I'm sure someone's put it, or just find Jigger's Paw, DZYGASPAW.com, Jigger's Paw, and go to projects and the Triad project. You'll find this, and then you can go to well, don't go to mine now because that is kind of finished. But thank you very much for everyone to that for that. But go to Jonathan Fink's one, and you will be met with his beautiful face and the request to donate 10,500. You don't have to do that yourself. Like you can just do like $20, like not 10. But if you want to donate $10,500, you're probably going to win the raffle. And make sure that when you go to donate, you have to copy Jonathan Fink for Triad comment. So when you copy that and then you go to whatever payment method, you need to put that in a reference or a field somewhere, because otherwise the money they won't know where to attribute it, and it might go to just in the general pot. So it's really, really important for everyone that does help with Jonathan Fink's project going forward. And you can donate directly via card, monobank. But as we said before, if it gets rejected, it's not because it's dodgy, it's because European banks or American banks do not like, or foreign banks generally do not like paying paying Ukrainian banks because they're in a war zone, so it often bounces, and that's why you might have to use PayPal. It just depends. It's a bit variable. Sorry, that's enough for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, we typically have issues with donations coming, so please don't, do not give up. There are many payment methods over there, and you can try different ones. And one more comment, if you'd like to donate to the Silicon Curtains fundraiser, or if you have donated already but forgot to put, the comment, or you donated before and you would like to allocate to this specific fundraiser, please let us know. There are emails you can reach out me or my team, which is at hello@zigaspot.com, basically. So you just write to us and we will allocate your donation to this specific fundraiser. So do not worry. Okay,
absolutely
so
brilliant.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
I'm trying to edit it, put the link in the video, but it doesn't really like me editing the live video. Don't know why, but I'm trying to get that link in there as we speak. And it keeps glitching, but there we go. I'll keep trying. Okay,
and for Jonathan Thanks fundraiser, we have same set of Zigaspor merch and chocolates, but we will have a badge from another brigade, which is 125th Brigade. This is separate brigade, mostly from Lviv, the city we are in, but they have a platoon which specializes in drone operations called Babylon. And this is their custom badge. The picture they sent us was actually not really good. It was a picture of this badge on some kind of uniform and everything. We cut it off, so it's really, a combat badge from them. They didn't send it to us yet, but they promised us to send it to us, and then we will send it to the Raffle winner. And what you'd like to use as a ticket, will you be doing $20 or $10 for yours? Because it says 10, but
I think I mean, like Jonathan, I think 20 would be great to go into that. Yeah, at this point we've got to get this thing done as well.
Cool. Yeah, so now you don't have any more chances to win, aside from ATP, because I extracted all the data and we are going to do the raffle now. But still, if you want to get something, you still have this chance to get it from Silicon Curtain. So donate to Silicon Curtains fundraiser. If there's any
to that, for anyone who misses out on this, we're also going to get Silicon Curtain patches. We have some made, and we're going to get them shipped from Kharkiv, I think they're made in, so or Odessa. So there'll be prizes there. For anyone who misses out on this, anyone who donates moving forward on the channel, anything above like $100, €100, £100, there will be Silicon Curtain patches made available to you, and that includes donating to Jiggers Poor or directly to support the channel or to any of the other fundraisers that we do. So there we go.
Wow, check that out.
Amazing. Awesome. Cool. Then I'll start the raffle. Should I do it now?
Oh, please do.
I'll share.
I'm excited, even though I'm not going to win.
We will see who wins. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. I will share my Chrome window, actually. Sorry if people will see the background for a while. Okay, can you see the Excel?
Sorry, I had to share this. I don't know if we can actually see that there, Jonathan.
Yep.
There it is. That's Silicon Curtain patch.
That's amazing, mate.
You could get, say, $100, £100, €100. Everyone who donates to Jiggers Poor will get one of those.
That's pretty amazing. Right, so here we have a...
here we have all the donations from your fundraiser. The total is 24,492.50 cents. I guess on the website it shows it rounded, I think. Yeah. So I just extracted it as is. Let me just check the latest donation, because maybe somebody else donated and I didn't include it, but I hope I did, because the last donation was from basically today, $25.
Ooh.
Yeah, $25 we got today. And here we have $25 we got today. So we are good, I think. So what I did, we actually have a script. I opened it here. for our raffle. So I'll just run it now by adding this spreadsheet URL. Okay, so I just need to log in to load some libraries, and then I'm adding this URL, which will get the data from your donations. Then I need to enter the ticket price, and the ticket is $20 instead of 10. Is it right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm entering $20 here. It loads. Now we have some code. I can explain it if you want. But
I'll tell you what, I know that Benny Pie, who helps me out with my YouTubing, he's going to be absolutely loving this.
So nice corgis walking around here, and they wrote this piece of code, which basically first creates kind of donor ID, because there could be people with same names, and we just combine basically sender name and donation time and date up to seconds, and then we calculate the number as ID, store it as IDs, and we calculate the number of tickets per donor, basically amount donated divided by ticket price, which is $20 right here. And then we define entries, like raffle entries, and then I can print it to show it how it looks like. So we have more than 1,000 entries in total, and it duplicates entries from same person. So if a person donated more than $20, it will generate like 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth entries for this person. And now let's go to calculate some summary. So we have a total amount of donations, total number of entries, and now we have some top donations. I think we have like 10 printed here. So these are the top 10 donations by value. The top one was from Paul. He made 2 big donations, like $4,000 in total. And in total, he got like more than 200 tickets. So good luck, everybody else who's participating. And now we'll go to the winner.
What a legend, Paul S. What a legend.
Let
me tell you.
Yeah, legendary. This is just legendary. And this one little piece here will select a winner, and I'm running it now. It says random choice. So basically out of all entries, it chooses one person, and it will output the details for the winner. So I'm scrolling it now. So raffle winner, date of the donation, 23rd February in the morning. Some person donated $1,000 and won 50 tickets, and it was some Paul E. And the email is censored here, but I have this email, and we will contact you by the email you provided. This is it. Congratulations, so Paul E.
Paul E. Paul E. E. Mr. E. Paul.
Great. Now we will be contacting you, and if you're watching or not, you'll have to provide us your address. And I hope Paul E will do this. Otherwise, we will wait, I think, for a week. And then if you do not receive a response, we'll just do it again and select another winner. That's what we typically do. But I really, really hope that Paul will get in.
I think someone said he's in the chat, actually.
Really?
I don't know. Grats, Paulie, you're in the chat. But like, Paul, if you don't answer, look, maybe we can wait a week and I might get a chance of winning myself. Oh, no, I can't. Damn. No, that's amazing. That's absolutely cool. And this is some, I presume, a Swedish person. So that's amazing, Paul E. from Sweden, I presume. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. You guys are amazing. And thank you. Thank you very much for showing us that, Irina, and talking us through it. I absolutely love it.
Great. I'm happy.
I haven't had this much excitement since watching my boy in the cup final last year when they won Havant at Waterlooville's stadium, and it was a glorious thing then. But this is, I think, it's just topped it.
Yeah, I didn't do a raffle for some time, so I'm excited to use this piece of code again. We have it written, you know, I just need to input new data, and we didn't do it for a while because people were like, we just didn't have this opportunity to do it because we had smaller projects. So this is very cool. We are excited. I have a team member who loves packing gifts, She would always put some nice pink stuff in there because, like, you know, Ziga is a girl, our logo is pink. So this will be really fancy packed, and it will probably arrive to you pretty soon with Ukroposhta from Lviv.
Brilliant, brilliant. And he's not in the chat apparently, but yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I'll put an announcement on a community tab as well to make sure he checks his emails. That's absolutely brilliant. Well done. And this is, of course, being rerun for Jonathan Fink's raffle, so that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so congratulations, Paulie, and anybody else who wants to win this. My main motivation factor would be chocolate set from Lviv. So if you want to get a chocolate set from Lviv, this is your chance. Donate to Jonathan Fink's fundraiser, and once it's finished, we'll be raffling it, and you'll have a chance to win it, along with the patches and customly signed flag. And for now, I will have to leave to my doctors. Really sorry I couldn't stay for some more time with you, but happy to jump on the next stream. We'll be raffling the next set.
That'd be fantastic. We look forward to that.
Absolutely brilliant. No, so thank you so much, Irina. And you know what? Thank you for what you do. Obviously, you don't need a thanks from some random Brit for what you do. I mean, you do what you do because you are Ukrainian and you feel obviously obliged to do that, as we talked about before. But it's fantastic, you know, at these times where it's really challenging geopolitically, and when you have like a ally that's become an adversary, and things are like feeling pretty desperate. Let's hope that Europe pulls together and comes to your assistance. But it's so great that we as individual humans and then collectively as communities can come together and help out in the way that we've clearly shown today and over the past few weeks. I'm blown away by my own audience's propensity to be so generous and with sizable donations, but also those tiny donations. And if you can't donate, then you can share all this kind of stuff. It's just been, it blows my mind, the generosity of you guys. And you know, obviously Jonathan will be, I'm sure, in the same position with his wonderful audience. And there's overlap there as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. This is very sweet. And, you know, throughout the last week, we received so many donations. We actually beat our record. So February 2024 was like all-time high months in terms of donations, like throughout the 3 years. It was like 185,000, something like that, dollars in a month, which was actually short. It was 28 days. And we received a lot of comments from people like from all around the world, like including donations to your fundraiser, had, you know, specific notes. It's just not included in the website because it might include some private info, but we read this, and every person said fuck Donald Trump, fuck every, you know, American politician. Wow. And stuff like that. We stand by you, you know, the real people from all around the world, including from the US, from Great Britain, we have your back, and here is my part. And we'll try to donate more. There were people who didn't donate for 2 years now, but the developments, you know, motivated them to keep the support. So we really feel it, and accept all the news we are hearing and reading. I just opened the chat with the donations, just read all the comments. They are so fun and so supportive, and it makes us keep going. So this is very important, and thank you for all your kind words. Let's keep doing, keep rocking.
Absolutely. Look, you give our love to all of your team, and obviously to Dimko as well, who I've interviewed. Oh, yeah. He's a wonderful guy, and he's with the Unmanned Forces services. So, you know, big love to all of you guys.
Thank you.
Hi to Dimko. We're very grateful.
We just received a donation. I just received another notification from our donations channel. Let me check. We received 3 donations, I guess, for Jonathan Fink for Triad. So It's going pretty good. You'll see
Fantastic.
it in the chart soon.
And we've got a lengthy interview with Irina and her team, which we recorded in Lviv. I'm going to put that out this week, and obviously put the donation link in there. But Jonathan, I'll send you over the raw files to that, so you can share that with your audience too, because we both are part of that interview. Yeah, important one to get out in front of people this week.
We will be waiting for this. Cool. Have a nice day, and bye.
Take care.
Cheers, Irina. Bye.
Thank you.
So, Jonathan,
we
we've got quite a lot of super chats to just talk about and questions that have come up with them.
Heads up,
okay.
I'm 25, got 25 minutes on the clock as well. I have a hard stop. I have to jump off at about 2 minutes.
I've got a live with Rick, the Ukrainian, about our NATO campaign in 25 minutes.
I've got an absolutely fabulous person. Well, Rick is, of course, is massively fabulous as well. But I've got a brilliant figure who is a great advocate for Ukraine. Someone called Marcy Shore, whose husband, many people will know, is Timothy Schneider. So she's coming up on the channel later, and we're going to talk about the abusive behavior that was demonstrated in the White House in the Oval Office. That abusive behavior is now translated into abuse of Ukraine directly, and abuse of the United States' allies around the world.
Yeah. That would be brilliant, and maybe a way into being able to speak to Timothy Snyder as well, not to diminish her.
No, well, that's a tricky one, because
I know you've spoken about that before.
Academic probity requires that. Yeah, we have to go through other channels too, but that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so Goose Springsteen has a few questions. We'll get to them at the end. Johnny Nebregard, thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate that. Kevin Forst, as ever, just a total legend. We have Per Lusberg saying, it seems that in the media there's more talk about sustainable peace and less about just peace. Is that significant, or am I just wrong? No, that's entirely significant. That's entirely the point. In fact, they don't even talk about sustainable peace. Well, they do.
No, they don't. They don't really. Only insofar, only insofar as they can get the minerals out of the ground. But I think this is one of the problems. Peace is not peace in this instance, because there's no semblance of justice. There's no mention of justice. I do not even think Trump even has a concept of what that is. You know, people who've died or been killed are losers. He said it on numerous occasions. He said it in relation to US military. If you volunteer or if you die, that's just the law of the jungle. You know, strong people, powerful people have the right to inflict suffering and trauma on others. Sorry, you're just a sucker and a loser. He has said it. Perhaps we just weren't listening.
Yeah. So I like the maxim, you know, they want a just peace, not just peace. You know, they want a just peace, not just peace. It's a really big difference between the use of just there, which I think is super, super important. Just to give you some more info, congratulations, Mike Waltz and co. You certainly built a lot of confidence that the US will cut Ukraine off at the knees while Russia continues as normal. As the US cuts off intel to Kyiv, hindering its long-range strikes to build confidence, which is what Mike Waltz said. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Air Force said that Russia launched 181 drone strikes and 3 missiles in their latest attack last night. But there was no stopping Russia from doing that. Everything is about stopping Ukraine. I think it's despicable. It's despicable. And the more I think about it, the more actually angry I get that has happened. Christine Vad for Silicon Curtain gifting a membership. That's very kind. Rick from the Netherlands, can we buy Patriots from Ukraine and give them all SAMTs with ammo we have? Would the US sell Patriots to us? Or could we? Well, so there's an interesting discussion about whether, like, say, for example, the Netherlands or Germany buys a bunch of Patriot missiles, and then can they give those? Will US put restrictions? I mean, would they put restrictions on buying anyway? You know, there's so many questions that's still up in the air. We just don't know. But whatever. What I do know is that the US is doing everything it can to disadvantage Ukraine as a way of strongmanning them to the table, and not Russia. It's unconscionable. We'll come to you, Goose, in a second. Lots of questions there. Thank you, Johnny Christensen. Really kind of you for that donation. Some Danish love. and you know they exist. It says free world versus evil empire, free world versus weasel empire. Zelenskyy and Ukraine equal the most valuable players. MVPs, Zelenskyy and Ukraine. Yeah, thank you for that, mate. Okay, Goose Springsteen. So a bunch of questions. Regarding Israel and Russia, Israel will always be reluctant to alienate Russia because it could result in Iran getting more and better modern equipment. About 20% of Israelis have a Russian background. I think 15% of Israelis speak Russian. So there is a definite connection there. I think the relationship between Israel and Russia is interesting. I was hopeful after Hamas happened and Russia actually said a few things to really annoy Israel, that Israel would get fully behind Ukraine. But since the Trump administration has come in and given loads of money to Israel and then convinced them to vote against Ukraine effectively in the United Nations with that resolution, I think Israel are more likely. They know that if they do anything to annoy the US, then Trump just won't give them all the weapons. So they're beholden to the US. It's how it is. Regarding JF, so Jonathan Fink on Russia and China. Russia can look at China in the 70s when it aligned with the US. As Jonathan Fink himself said, China had unresolved territorial claims on the Russian Eastern Front and too much sway to be comfortable. I don't know if you've got anything to say about that.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because if you take this to its logical conclusion, if you want to turn China into the main adversary and peel Russia away from it, well, one, that's not likely, and Russia's going to betray it. I think that's clear. But even if there's some kind of temporary alignment of interests, what ultimately does it lead to if you were to have a US-Russia axis against China? China, of course, this risks nuclear war, but China has huge economic interests invested in Russia. If you look down at those territories on the border, there are many, many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Chinese farmers and workers that are keeping Russian food production and parts of its industry alive. So it's a ludicrous idea that actually Russia would fully turn against China. But if it did, how long would it take for China to roll Russia up? Just roll over it. It would happen faster than a Trump betrayal of his allies, that's for sure. So this is a very dangerous game. For those who say, oh, Ukraine's provoking World War III, well, unfortunately, it's the actions of Trump and Putin that are accelerating us rapidly towards a sort of World War III scenario. But I think this idea of this public impression of an alliance or whatever, behind the scenes, I do not think that'll take place. I think there will be a carve up. I think there'll be competition in certain respects. One of Vlad Vex's phrases there, but behind it, they'll be making deals. They'll be making agreements to carve the world up. This becomes incredibly dangerous when the two authoritarian powers in the world, the Russian bloc and the Chinese bloc, decides that, or are joined by the US, which becomes an authoritarian bloc. In that scenario, they could carve the world up between them, and that includes the navigation routes, that includes Greenland, that includes Canada. All these places are just then pawns on a board, ready to sweep up and take. That only needs Europe as a substantial power bloc and an economic bloc that is not aligned with a particular sphere of interest. And I think here China and the US are moving towards the idea that Europe comes under the so-called Russian Eurasian sphere. Well, if we don't want to be part of that, we need to do something about it pretty rapidly.
Yeah, one good bit of news coming out is that oil's fallen to its lowest price in 4 years, which is good news. I mean, that will hurt Russia, and actually that's something that Trump would want as well, which is low price of oil, which will drive down inflation.
And this is the underlying reason why we're seeing an acceleration towards strong-arming Ukraine, because yes, they want the peace and they want to start making money out of it, and etc. But I think they also understand that Russia is screwed just so long as the price of oil is dropping. So they need to get a peace quickly so that the price of oil no longer becomes an issue for Russia. So they can remove the oil cap and Russia can start making profits out of oil irrespective of where that price lands. At the moment, it's risky for them because operating the shadow fleet is expensive. They have lost some of their core trading markets like China or India are not buying quite so much. And there are certain issues there in terms of the currency transactions that are used to buy those resources. So this is why the almighty panic is on to get peace, inverted commas, quickly, because if this is the trend of oil, it's not good for Russia. And also the what's going to be the knock-on effect of Trump and Doge? Well, it's going to be to crash the US economy. What happens when you have a crashed economy and a global recession? Oil prices drop through the floor because there's less demand for energy. So this is all going not in the way of Russia, but lower oil prices are one of Trump's key strategic aims to please his domestic base. So this is a race to force Ukraine to cede or to have it dominated before Russia, quite literally, the bottom falls out of its economy.
Yeah, and just to give you a little bit more context to this whole like intelligence sharing thing. So Julia Davis from Russian Media Monitor said Trump's team wants to extract preliminary concessions from Ukraine and then present this gift to the Russians for their consideration. Zero pressure. So that's referring to this Reuters article that says, which is what Shashank Joshua is referring to. Waltz said the letter from Zelenskyy was a good positive first step. Officials were in discussions over a date, location, negotiating team that would lead to an end to the war, he said. Quote, we're already talking about confidence building measures that will then take to the Russians and test that side. So stopping intelligence is a confidence building measure to take to the Russians, say, look what we've done. We've screwed Ukraine over. Does that build confidence that we're trying to work in, I don't know, Russia's best interest? He said in the interview with Fox and Friends. Waltz did not say what confidence building measures would be. Well, we're seeing it now. Yeah, I don't want to get myself too much more angry.
Let's not call it peace. It is capitulation. Appeasement measures. That's what it is. It's like a Danegeld. It's bringing gifts to the Tsar in the hope that you can get what you want. So, in that respect, those who are criticizing Zelenskyy for his performance, they need to understand what's going on behind the scenes, because Zelenskyy acutely understands this. He can smell the betrayal on the wind. Ukraine has been betrayed numerous times by allies as well as adversaries over centuries. Ukrainians more than anyone understand what betrayal means and how it feels and what results from betrayal. What results from betrayal is decades and decades of submission to an authoritarian. It means the genocide of your people and the attempt to wipe out your culture and language. Zelenskyy understands this. For those who say just get the minerals deal signed, and then you're halfway there. No, this is one concession that will lead to more and more and more concessions until Ukraine is.
But they've got no choice. Well, the only choice they have is if Europe. Well, is if Europe steps up. But then I was sort of speaking to you before, and I know we've got to be really quick here, but the problem is if the US turns against Ukraine, as in more formally, so then says, right, you're not doing what we want this, and you're continuing to fight. Well, then not only are we not going to give you aid, we're actually going to give aid to Russia, or we're going to lift all the sanctions, or we're going to give intelligence to Russia, or something like this.
That's the next step. I mean, it's for those who say it's fantastical. That's exactly where we're heading. And not only that, they will sanction, browbeat, and bully European allies who step in to try and support Ukraine in its fight. Make no mistake, this is a trajectory now towards the capitulation of anyone that stands in the way of Russia. But those who think that actually appeasing that is the right way to go, but there's no end. There's no end to where that ends up. So we need to follow the Ukrainian model, which is fight with everything we've got. Because ultimately bullies are also cowards as well. And if this fight is pushed hard, Russia will cave, not just cave in terms of making concessions. They won't do that. The regime will collapse in Russia. It will. Yeah. Putin will be gone, and then Trump will look even more stupid than he currently does.
So Goose Springsteen, thanks, mate. The issue of a no-fly zone is where the planes are based. Yeah, I mean, I think you could service Western and maybe Odessa area from Romania and from Poland. So I think you could probably do quite a bit of Ukraine. A no-fly zone, I think, would be useful, or at least help. I think we saw with Iran, when UK and French and Jordanian planes supported the US, I think we can just push our planes into Russia, and Russia wouldn't start a nuclear war over that. So I think we just need to go, right, screw you, Russia, and we'll use them to shoot down missiles only in a defensive capacity. But will they have the guts to do that? I don't know.
I'm going to get some military guys in, because I think they probably say that you would need a certain degree of logistics on the ground. You'd need forward operating bases. You need a certain amount of stuff in order to keep that kind of infrastructure and operation going. And at that point, of course, the Russian propagandists would basically say that we are directly at war with Russia. And even if we're not in a direct kind of on the ground confrontation with them, you can be guaranteed that these sabotage will escalate considerably right across Europe. There was a water plant, I think, in Sweden that recently had, over the weekend, a piece of sabotage on it. So they have been doing reconnaissance, they've been doing test sabotage events. If we were to close the skies over Ukraine and all that implies, we would see a huge escalation in terrorist action against our infrastructure right across Europe, launched by Russia. So again, we need to be aware that that is the likely scenario.
Yeah. Goose says, by what mechanism can Hungary be removed from the EU legally? How can the process be imposed while Slovakia and Hungary protect one another? I forget the articles. Article 4, Article 11, Article 7, Article 52. I don't know. One of the articles, there is a way for that, but actually the EU didn't do a very good job because they didn't think that anyone would want to leave. They had all these hoops you had to jump through to get into the EU, but they never really foresaw anyone needing to be expelled. And so when people then do democratic backsliding like Hungary have done, and don't really qualify to remain in the EU, what the EU does is generally try and withhold financing to them, which has been quite successful with Hungary, puts them into an uncomfortable position where they need all this money and the EU is withholding it, but they're still intransigent, and actually there aren't too many really obvious mechanisms to get them out of the EU. And then you got the ramification of you send them out of the EU, you send them out of NATO, and then they're straight into the arms of Russia, and it disallows them to democratically select a new leader. So Peter Magyar would never get in because Orban would just go full dictatorship. So
yes.
There are some problems there, but there are ways. But it is not easy to get kicked out of the EU, which is why the EU doesn't have too many options there. But I don't know enough about that. Sorry, I'm really rushing these. Trump forcing an increased European military spending, a genius plan and a net gain for US military manufacturers. Can Europe decrease benefit by increasing homegrown, or do NATO rules dictate who makes what? No, well, actually, European defense strategy is has stipulated 60% of what they buy should be indigenous, but I think you're going to start seeing 100%. I think there's moves now to not have components built in of any kind of a piece of equipment from the US. Now, the French are really good at this. They've always been big on that because they want complete independence, and they've got the second biggest arm. They are the second biggest arms exporter in the world. So we need to take a leaf out of the French book, and that will also be an industrial stimulus for our own countries or for the EU. The EU is definitely going to be just looking to itself to if they're going to spend up to 800 billion euros, they're going to want to make sure that is spent within the EU and not in America.
There's an economic reason for it, especially with the tariffs kicking off. And this is where Trump's going to kick himself in the foot. Are we really going to raise all of this money essentially, I would say off the books? It's not off the books, but I mean, it's outside of the standard budget. Germany's lifting a cap for that. Are we really going to then hand that money over to the US when they're imposing economic tariffs, when they're threatening to withhold the data that these systems need, when they are threatening that these systems could be bricked if we do things they don't like? We would be insane to hand over a single euro of that money to any US defense contractors. Trump has screwed his own industry good and proper.
Yeah, and that's been my hope, and I've said this for the last few weeks, maybe even longer. My hope is that the US economy comes to the rescue of Europe and Ukraine by point
and
of
the
fact
300 billion, Jonathan, right? And that accounts
Yeah.
for the 300 billion as well. If we finally get round to seizing it, and it looks like there are moves that are closer to doing that, will we spend any of that on the US now? Big chunks of that would have been spent in the US economy.
Yeah.
They won't now.
So the defense industry is going to be hurting, and they'll be lobbying the government to change their approach. The economy as a whole, putting tariffs on everyone, the US economy is going to hurt. I mean, everyone else is going to hurt, but the US is going to hurt more so. And what I hope is that the US people and the US military industrial complex actually lobby the government or protest the government to get them to change their ways. The problem with Ukraine itself as an individual topic is it's become completely and utterly partisan, and that is just well, not completely, but largely partisan. Dunk on you.
I like Ida's comment. Did you see Ida's comment in there? It's like, she says, the US stock market is crashing so badly, it's almost as if the country has been run by someone who has 6 business bankruptcies behind him. It's a good point made by my guest yesterday. He's an atrocious businessman.
Yeah, and bad negotiator. People keep thinking he's a good negotiator. He's not. Dunk on you has joined your channel as a member just now. He's over at Greg's, one of Greg's great supporters, and then has given a super chat to you, Fink, and said, Slava Ukraini, working but listening, keep up the great work, and has then gifted 10 Silicon Curtain membership. So he's come on board big styly. So that's awesome. Thank you very much, Dunk on you. And we're broadly going to have to leave it there, because I've now got to jump onto a live stream with the Ukrainian and Roman Trokomets to talk about our new NAFO campaign. So please all go here.
Say hi to the guys there. I'm jumping into interview 2, and but we'll catch up hopefully later in the week. We'll do more of these next week to keep that whole Jiggers Paw campaign going as well. I'm kind of hoping that say hi to Rick, and kind of hoping you might be around on Friday as well. So let's kind of see. Yeah,
brilliant. Well, I'll talk to him about that. But keep looking at, or not just looking at, Jiggers Paw. Keep donating to Jonathan Fink's project there at Jiggers Paw campaign, and help him get up to that target, while also earning yourself the potential to get some goodies from Ukraine. So that's fantastic stuff. Look, thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate spending time with you always, and thank you to all the wonderful people who have been listening in here. Over 800 across both channels, so that's absolutely fantastic news. Thank you for being as finding that this topic is as important as it really is, and wanting to keep abreast of it, because I think we're in such an important moment on Earth in modern history now, and so it is something we have got to be not only keeping an eye on, but lobbying our politicians, and not just our politicians, but friends. I've had people contacting me saying people keep coming up with NATO expansionism as a reason for blah, blah, blah. And I've seen it on GB News myself. I don't watch GB News, but I've seen clips. I'm like, come on, these myths are spreading again. And this happened at the beginning of the war. We thought we'd put them to bed, and they're coming back because there's that whole growth of anti-Ukraine thought. And yes, it's really depressing.
GB News is Russia today in reincarnated form. So we'll have a chat about that next time.
Absolutely. Look, I must go, even though I'm the one that keeps talking. Look, you take care, mate, and I'll speak to you soon. And take care, everyone else. Slava Ukraini.
Herojam Slava.